All right, team, listen up. Today, we're tackling one of the biggest challenges on our plate, locking down the security for our next-gen micro-EVs. We're going to lay out the engineering blueprint for making these incredibly affordable cars fundamentally secure. Make no mistake, the principles we establish here are going to decide whether this entire vehicle segment succeeds or fails on the world stage. So let's dive right in. First things first, we need a complete mindset shift. The core idea that has to drive every single decision is this: low speed does not mean low risk. The old way of thinking that a small, cheap car doesn't need serious security, that's over. It's dangerous. These are not golf carts. They are complex, connected computers on wheels, and to an attacker, they are a very attractive target. And that brings us to the central challenge, the real question for us as engineers. We are under enormous pressure to keep costs down. The whole point of these cars is affordability. But at the same time, the threats out there are sophisticated, and the regulations are getting tougher every single day. Our job is to bridge that gap. We're not going to solve this by throwing expensive hardware at it. We're going to solve it with smarter engineering. So here's our game plan for today. We'll start by digging into this paradox of low cost and high risk. Then we'll walk through the maze of global regulations we have to navigate. After that, we'll get technical, dissect the vehicle's architecture, pinpoint the weaknesses, and then lay out our security blueprint. And finally, we'll cover the plan to take that blueprint all the way to production.
Okay, first up, the low-cost, high-risk paradox. It's a tough pill to swallow, but the very design choices we made to hit that low price point have accidentally created a perfect storm for security nightmares. Let's break down exactly what I mean.
So what makes this a perfect storm? Well, first, think about physical access. In a car-sharing model, you could have dozens, even hundreds of different people plugging into the car's diagnostic and USB ports every single week. Second, to save a few $100 on a built-in screen, we're using the driver's own smartphone as the interface. That means we're connecting a device with consumer-grade security, potentially already compromised, directly into the car's network. But the biggest problem by far is the flat architecture. To save on hardware, there's no central gateway. The vehicle controller, the battery management system, the telematics box, they're all sitting on the same open network. It's the equivalent of connecting your company's main server directly to the public Wi-Fi in a coffee shop. One breach, and the attacker has the keys to the entire kingdom.
And that vulnerable architecture we just talked about? Well, it's about to hit a regulatory brick wall. The days of these little EVs flying under the radar are officially done. If we don't comply with these new global rules from day one, we simply can't sell the car. Period. And look at these deadlines. These are not suggestions, and they are not far off in the future. China's tough GB standard becomes mandatory for new models at the start of 2026. The EU's R155 follows right behind it in late 2027. You know our development cycles. This means we have to be designing for these rules right now. These dates are set in stone.
Now, it's really important to understand how these regulations are different. The EU's R155 is all about process. It asks, do you have a certified system for managing cybersecurity risks? It's the what. China, on the other hand, is prescriptive. Their GB standards tell you how you must secure the vehicle. They don't just ask if you secure the diagnostic port. They tell you exactly how it has to be done. So what's the takeaway for us? Simple. We engineer to the strictest standard, China's, as our global baseline. We do that, and we build one platform that's compliant everywhere. Now, the US, that's a whole different ballgame. The main risk there isn't about passing a vehicle certification test. It's about geopolitics. The government is actively moving to ban connected vehicle components, hardware and software, from what they call countries of concern. This directly impacts our choice of T-boxes and the cellular chips inside them. The bottom line, our bill of materials has to be clean for the US market from the very beginning.
Okay, time to pop the hood. To build a solid defense, we have to know the battlefield inside and out. Let's walk through the exact cost-driven architecture that we need to protect.
So here's a bird's eye view of a typical EE architecture for these cars. The first thing that jumps out, no central gateway. It's a flat network. The brains of the operation, the VCU, the BMS, the T-box, they're all sharing a single CAN bus. This leaves our external interfaces, the cell connection, Bluetooth, the USB port, as wide open doors to that critical network. And to make matters worse, it's all running on a classic low-speed CAN bus, which means trying to add heavy-duty encryption would be like trying to stream 4K video over a dial-up modem. It just can't handle it. And because of that flat architecture, these threats become absolutely critical. A remote flaw in the T-box isn't just a software bug. It's an express lane for an attacker to take over the vehicle. That's an extreme risk.
A Bluetooth vulnerability like Perfect Blue, that's a high risk for the exact same reason. And with the diagnostic port wired directly into the network, key cloning attacks are, frankly, child's play. And I want to be clear, these are not theoretical. These are real attacks happening on real cars right now. Okay, we've defined the problem in detail. Now, let's engineer the solution. This is our blueprint. These are the core requirements that will let us build a defense that is smart and effective, not just expensive. The bedrock of our entire defense has to be built right into the silicon. Our strategy starts by mandating microcontrollers that have a secure hardware extension, or SHE. Now, this isn't some extra expensive security chip we have to add on. It's a feature that's already built into many standard, cost-effective MCUs. The best way to think of it is a tiny digital Fort Knox right on the chip itself. It's a locked vault that stores our secret keys and handles all the crypto operations, keeping them completely hidden from the main software. So here's the first line in our statement of requirements, and it is non-negotiable. All critical ECUs, the VCU, the T-Box, the BMS, must use an MCU with a built-in SHE module. And this isn't a research project. We've already done the homework. Platforms from NXP, UNECE, and Infineon all fit the bill, meeting both our security needs and our cost targets. This is the starting point for every supplier. Okay, so we've secured the keys in the vault. Now, how do we protect the messages they're sending? We do that with Secure Onboard Communication, or SecOC. In simple terms, this adds a cryptographic signature to critical messages on the CAN bus. Think of it like a digital signature on a check. The body control module won't cache the check, say, unlock the doors, unless it sees a valid, unforgeable signature from a trusted source. This is how we contain a breach. Even if one ECU is compromised, it can't send fake commands to other critical systems. And finally, we have to protect the software itself. We need to guarantee that the code running on our ECUs is our code and only our code. We do that with Secure Boot. Every time a critical controller powers on, it first verifies the digital signature of its own software. If it's been tampered with, it simply won't run. And this protection extends to over-the-air updates. All firmware has to be signed and encrypted, and crucially, we need to prevent attackers from rolling back the software to an older, more vulnerable version. We can't let an update become a backdoor. A blueprint on paper is one thing. Making it real is another. This is the final piece, execution. We're going to talk about how we manage our suppliers, how we verify our work, and how we get a secure vehicle to market, on time and on budget. Let me be crystal clear on this point. Security is not just our job, it is a supply chain-wide mandate. We will enforce these requirements using a legally binding document called a Cybersecurity Interface Agreement. This isn't a handshake deal. Any supplier providing critical components must provide proof of compliance with the ISO 21434 standard. No exceptions, no excuses. When it comes to testing, we don't just defend, we attack. Our V&V strategy is about proactively hunting for weaknesses. We will hire professional, ethical hackers, pen testers, to try and break our own systems. We'll use automated fuzz testing to hammer our interfaces with junk data to find the bugs we don't know exist. We will constantly scan our code for known vulnerabilities. This is all about finding and fixing problems long before a customer ever could. And this all maps onto a realistic 24-month execution roadmap. The first 3 months are for locking down the concept and releasing these requirements. The next 9 months are for hardcore design and development. Then we have a dedicated 6-month block for nothing but validation and pen testing before we move into final certification and the start of production. It's a tight schedule, but with this plan, it is absolutely achievable. So let's boil this entire briefing down to 3 core commandments. If you remember nothing else, remember these. 1. Start with secure hardware. Everything is built on the foundation of the right MCU. 2. Enforce strict isolation. We have to use every tool we have to act as a firewall between the outside world and the car's critical controls. And 3. Design for global compliance. Build to the toughest standard out there, and you only have to build it once. This is how we win. I'll leave you with one final question. A question that I think is going to define the next decade of this industry. For 100 years, automotive safety has meant airbags and crumple zones, surviving a physical crash. But in a world where every car is a computer on wheels, we have to ask, has cybersecurity become the new seatbelt, the new airbag? Is it now the single most important safety feature of all? I think we all know the answer to that. Now let's get to work.